Most prepper food advice comes from people who have never actually been hungry. Not inconvenienced hungry, not skipped lunch hungry. Hungry in the way that forces a real calculation. What do I eat today that costs almost nothing, requires no refrigeration, no stove, no address, and still keeps me functional tomorrow? There is a population in every American city already living that calculation, not preparing for collapse, inside it. They have no 72-hour kits, no freeze-dried reserves, no survival forums. They have a $3 daily food budget, a clear head, and years of field experience. We went looking for what they actually eat, not what they wish they had, not what charity delivers, what they seek, find, and consume when every formal system has already failed them. 15 meals. The most calorie-dense, acquisition-independent, infrastructure-free food strategy in America. Every prepper should know these before the trucks stop. Most prepper food advice is theoretical. The forums debate caloric targets. The YouTube channels rank freeze-dried brands. The spreadsheets calculate rotation schedules. None of it has been tested under the one condition that actually matters: no money, no infrastructure, no fallback, and a body that still needs 2,000 calories tomorrow. Here's what we went looking for instead: the real stress test. And the real stress test has 3 layers. The first layer is calories per dollar, not taste, not variety, not long-term nutritional balance. When you're operating on a $3 daily food budget, which is the approximate daily food spend of a person surviving on the street in a major American city, every purchase gets reduced to a single brutal calculation. How many calories does this dollar buy me? Most people have never run that math. When they do, it reorganizes everything they thought they knew about food. The second layer is acquisition independence. This is the variable preppers almost never account for. A food source only works if you can access it when the formal supply chain is gone, not when Amazon delivers in 2 days, not when the grocery store is stocked. When the shelves are empty, the trucks aren't coming, and the only acquisition options are the ones that exist outside the retail system entirely. We looked specifically for foods that can be found, purchased, or sourced without a functioning supply chain. That constraint eliminates most of what's currently in your pantry. The third layer is preparation simplicity. No refrigeration, no stove in many cases, no fixed address. If a food requires equipment or infrastructure to be edible, it fails the test. What passes the test is what remains when you strip everything away. We applied those 3 layers to everything. Hundreds of food sources, dozens of acquisition pathways, every caloric option available below the poverty line. The list that came out the other side has 15 items, not the 15 most appealing options, the 15 that score highest across all 3 layers simultaneously. In a minute, you'll see exactly how those 3 layers filter everything down to what actually matters. But first, you need to understand what the first layer reveals, because the math is brutal and the results will surprise you. The most calorie-dense cheap food in America isn't a protein bar. It isn't a survival ration or a military MRE or anything sold in a prepper store. It's a 1-pound bag of dried pinto beans that costs less than $1 and contains roughly 1,500 calories. That's your starting point. Dried beans, pinto, black, kidney. The specific variety matters less than the category. What matters is the caloric math. Under $1 per pound, over 1,500 calories per pound. High protein, high fiber, shelf-stable for years without refrigeration. They can be soaked in cold water and eaten without cooking. Not pleasantly, but functionally. In a grid-down scenario, functional is the entire conversation. The second item is white rice. Bulk white rice costs under 50 cents per pound and delivers approximately 1,600 calories per pound. It has almost no nutritional complexity beyond carbohydrates and calories, but in the early stages of a supply chain failure, carbohydrates and calories are exactly what keeps a body moving. Every major civilization that survived a famine had a grain staple. Rice is the most globally reliable one in recorded history. It stores for 25 years in sealed containers. It requires nothing but water and heat to prepare, and in survival conditions, heat means fire, which means any open flame. Third is plain ramen. Not the flavor packet version, the noodle block itself, which runs about 25 cents per package and contains roughly 380 calories. It is available at every dollar store, every gas station, every corner shop in every city in America. In a collapse scenario, acquisition independence matters more than quality. Ramen can be soaked in cold water and eaten soft without any cooking at all. Most people don't know that. Now you do. Fourth is peanut butter. Store brand, large jar, bulk when possible. Peanut butter contains approximately 2,600 calories per pound. For comparison, standard military rations average around 1,250 calories per pound at roughly 40 times the cost. It requires no refrigeration. It can be eaten directly from the container with no preparation of any kind. It is the single highest calorie per dollar food that also delivers meaningful protein and fat simultaneously. The catch across all four: water dependency. Beans and rice require water to prepare. Ramen requires water to be palatable. Even peanut butter accelerates dehydration without adequate water intake. The caloric baseline only works if the water problem is already solved. We'll come back to that. Those four cover your survival floor. But surviving on a floor isn't surviving. It's deteriorating on a schedule. Caloric survival and nutritional survival are not the same thing. This is the distinction that kills people slowly, the one that doesn't announce itself until the damage is already done. Scurvy killed more British sailors than cannon fire in the Age of Sail. Not because food was scarce, because the food they had contained no vitamin C, and the human body runs out of its stored supply in approximately 60 days. After that, the connective tissue begins to break down. Wounds stop healing. Gums bleed. Joints fail. The body dismantles itself from the inside. They had food. They were dying anyway. The next four meals exist because of that gap. Cabbage. A whole head of green cabbage costs under $1 at almost any grocery store and stores for weeks without refrigeration in cool conditions. It is one of the densest sources of vitamin C available at that price point, and it is raw edible, no cooking required. In a grid-down scenario where fire is either scarce or tactically unwise, a food you can eat directly without preparation is worth more than its caloric value suggests. Most preppers stock vitamin C supplements. Supplements run out. Cabbage grows. Eggs. A single egg contains complete protein, fat, B12, and a meaningful portion of the daily micronutrient requirements a body needs to stay functional beyond 30 days. The acquisition path changes in a collapse scenario. Commercial supply chains break, but backyard chickens survive. Churches distribute them. Farms trade them. In every documented long-term grid-down event, eggs become one of the first informal barter commodities. Know where they come from before you need them. Rolled oats. Bulk rolled oats cost roughly 50 cents per pound, deliver meaningful iron and B vitamin content, and can be soaked in cold water and eaten without cooking. The nutritional profile outlasts white rice in practical terms. Rice keeps you moving. Oats help keep your blood and nervous system operational. There is a difference between those two outcomes after week 3. Lard or bulk cooking oil. This is the one most preppers skip entirely, and it is the one that will end them. Fat contains approximately 3,500 calories per pound. More importantly, fat is the primary fuel source for the brain. Without adequate fat intake, cognitive function begins to degrade within weeks. Decision-making, threat assessment, problem-solving, every skill that keeps you alive in a crisis runs on fat metabolism. Peanut butter from the previous tier helps. Dedicated fat stores are the backup that ensures you stay sharp when everything else is going wrong. The next tier is where this gets uncomfortable for most preppers. I know what some of you are thinking. You've got 6 months of Mountain House freeze-dried meals stacked in the basement, labeled bins, rotation dates, a spreadsheet tracking caloric totals. You've spent $3,000 on that system. You're covered. For the first 2 weeks of a crisis, sure. Maybe the first month. Here's what the freeze-dried food industry doesn't tell you. You cannot develop acquisition skills from inside a pantry. The freeze-dried system works exactly as long as the supply holds, and then it stops working completely. There is no transition. There is no skill transfer. The person who has eaten from pouches for 30 days knows how to open pouches. When the pouches run out, that person has no framework, no practiced knowledge, no mapped acquisition network. They have a very expensive countdown clock that just hit 0. Run the caloric math. $3,000 in freeze-dried meals buys you roughly 250,000 to 300,000 calories, depending on brand. $3,000 in bulk pinto beans, rice, and oats buys you somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million calories. That's not a marginal difference. That's the difference between 3 months and 18 months on the same budget. The prepper pantry industry sells comfort, not survival arithmetic. There's a third problem. The stash makes you a target. In every documented collapse scenario, in every grid-down event longer than 2 weeks, the person with visible stored food becomes the single largest security liability in their immediate area. A pantry is not a survival asset in a destabilized neighborhood. It is an announcement. The homeless survival model does not have this problem because it does not rely on stored inventory. It relies on continuous acquisition from sources most people don't know exist. That knowledge doesn't expire. It doesn't get stolen. It doesn't run out. It moves with the person who has it. A pantry is a countdown clock. Acquisition skill is a survival engine. Your choice. But choose before you need to, because the window to develop real acquisition knowledge closes the moment the crisis starts. The next 5 meals are where that knowledge lives. The most valuable survival food knowledge isn't about what's on a shelf. It's about what's invisible to people who've never had to look. There is a food layer sitting on top of every American city that most people walk through every day without seeing. The dumpster behind a commercial bakery at 10 o'clock at night. The apple tree on the edge of a church parking lot. The dandelion growing through the sidewalk 3 blocks from the shelter. These aren't metaphors. They're acquisition pathways that operate continuously, regardless of whether any supply chain is functioning, regardless of whether any store is open, regardless of whether any government distribution system exists. Bread is the first item in this tier. Every commercial bakery in America discards between 10 and 15% of its daily production. Day-old bread that doesn't sell gets pulled from shelves and either discarded or donated. In a functioning city, that pipeline runs quietly in the background. In a crisis, that pipeline becomes a food source for anyone who knows where it empties and when. Bread runs roughly 1,200 calories per loaf. The acquisition cost is 0 if you know the timing and the location. Most people don't know either. The second item is foraged greens. Dandelion is the starting point. It grows in every disturbed soil environment in North America, which means every vacant lot, every roadside, every unmaintained lawn in every city on the continent. The entire plant is edible: leaves, flowers, root. The caloric value is modest, but the micronutrient value is significant. Vitamins A, C, and K, plus iron and calcium. Plantain, the weed, not the banana, grows in the same environments and delivers similar nutritional value. Wood sorrel, identifiable by its clover-like leaves and slightly sour taste, appears in parks, sidewalk cracks, and disturbed soil everywhere. These plants don't require purchasing, storage, or preparation infrastructure. They require identification. Most people walk past a dandelion and think weed. What the street-level survival dataset sees is a free salad. The third item in this tier is the community meal. Every city in America has food distribution infrastructure that operates independently of retail supply chains. food banks, church meal programs, community kitchens, shelter services. In a grid-down scenario, these institutions activate rather than shut down. Every historical disaster record shows the same pattern. Understanding how those meals are constructed, what ingredients anchor them, and how to replicate the basic formula, a broth base, a starch, a protein scrap, is a skill that translates directly to independent food production when the distribution network eventually normalizes. You can buy gear. You can stockpile food. But the next meals only work if you've already built something you can't order online. The most reliable food source in any collapse isn't a store, a garden, or a forest. It's a neighbor who trusts you. This is the variable nobody in the prepper community wants to quantify, because it can't be purchased and it can't be stockpiled. It has to be built, over time, through the slow accumulation of mutual obligation. And in every documented grid-down event longer than 72 hours, informal food-sharing networks formed before any government response arrived. Not after. Before. The social infrastructure activates faster than the formal kind. Always. The 12th meal is the shared pot. One person brings water, another brings a handful of rice, a third has a can of something. Anything. Put it together over a single fire, and you have a meal for 6 that none of them could have assembled alone. This is the economics of communal cooking, and it has fed more people through more crises than any individual pantry in history. The homeless community understands this better than any prepper forum. Informal cooking networks form within days of a population losing access to formal food infrastructure. Resources pool not out of generosity, but out of rational self-interest. The person who shares today eats tomorrow. The 13th meal is traded protein. Eggs, canned goods, dried meat, whatever protein sources survive the first wave of supply chain failure become the primary barter currency within 2 weeks of any serious grid-down scenario. What you have to offer determines what you eat. This is not abstract. Post-Katrina documentation shows informal trade networks operating within 4 days of the storm's landfall, with food as the primary exchange commodity. The people who ate well were not the ones with the largest individual stockpiles. They were the ones embedded in functional exchange networks. Reputation as a reliable trader was worth more than any single food item. The person eating alone in the crisis is the person who didn't build anything before it. 2 meals left. They're the ones nobody on a prepper forum ever mentions, because they require a different kind of thinking entirely. The last 2 meals aren't really meals. They're systems disguised as food. The 14th is rice and beans eaten together, not separately. Together. This is the only plant-based combination that delivers a complete protein, meaning all 9 essential amino acids the human body cannot synthesize on its own. Lysine from the legume, methionine from the grain. Combine them in roughly equal caloric proportion, and you have a protein source that rivals animal protein at a fraction of the cost, and with none of the cold chain dependency. This is not a modern nutritional discovery. It is the dietary foundation of every civilization that survived long enough to leave a historical record. Roman legions, Mesoamerican populations, South and Southeast Asian agricultural societies across 3,000 years of documented history. They weren't eating this way because it tasted good. They were eating this way because it worked when nothing else was available. It still works. Nothing about the biology has changed. Score. A plus. The 15th meal is lard and flour flatbread. 3 ingredients, rendered fat, flour, water, and a flat surface over any heat source. No yeast, no rising time, no equipment beyond a fire and a flat rock or pan. Each serving delivers over 400 calories. The shelf life of flour in sealed storage runs to years. Rendered fat, properly stored, lasts months without refrigeration. This is the survival ration that fed every famine migration in recorded history. From the Irish diaspora to the Dust Bowl evacuations to refugee movements across every continent. It is not glamorous. It is not the meal anyone wants to eat. It is the meal that keeps people alive long enough to find something better. Score: a plus. What both meals share is the same thing. Anyone who knows how to make them can feed themselves and others from almost any environment, with almost any available inputs, under almost any conditions. The knowledge is the asset. The ingredients are everywhere. Now here's the only thing a list can't give you. A list without practice is trivia. And trivia won't feed you when the trucks stop. Knowing these 15 meals and being ready to use them are two different things entirely. Geography gives you a chance. Skills give you survival. Community gives you a future. These three things work together, or they don't work at all. So here's what you actually do with this. First, audit your current food strategy against the 3 layers: calories per dollar, acquisition independence, preparation simplicity. Most people will discover that what they have scores well on the first layer and fails the other 2 completely. A pantry full of food you can't source again and can't prepare without infrastructure is not a food strategy. It's a delay. Second, buy and cook from this list now, before you need to. The rice and bean combination, the flatbread, the oatmeal made with cold water and nothing else. Cook it. Eat it. Understand what it actually takes to prepare these things under constrained conditions. The knowledge only exists in your hands after you've done the work. Reading about it is not the same thing. Third, identify the invisible food layer in your current location. Find the bakery surplus. Walk the blocks near you and learn what grows in the disturbed soil. Map the community meal programs that already operate in your area. This information is available right now, in normal conditions. When finding it is easy. It will not be easy to find when you actually need it. Fourth, build the relationships that make the communal meals possible. Your neighbor's skills and your neighbor's trust are survival assets. They cannot be acquired in a crisis. They have to already exist. The homeless people who survive long-term in every city aren't the ones with the best individual resources. They're the ones who built the best systems. The same logic applies when civilization fractures at scale. 15 meals. 3 skills. 1 decision before the truck stop.